Hi guys, this is gsnom.com and I'm here with the review of the POCO X4 GT. We've previously tested the POCO F4 and also the POCO F4 GT models this year, so now it's time for an X device. Now this one can be easily labeled as a mid-range gaming phone on account of the 144Hz refresh rate and the quite powerful CPU inside. Also, the screen is quite generous at 6.6 inches. The CPU I keep mentioning here is a MediaTek Dimensity 8100, closely related to the ones we've seen recently on OnePlus mid-rangers and Oppo mid-rangers. Now the price is actually quite solid, $350, so let's get going, let's start the review. Now, as far as POCO is concerned, this is an atypical phone. It looks a bit like an Oppo Reno if you look at the camera, while at the same time it has a pretty strong Xiaomi 11T aesthetic if you look at the backside color and format. There's a flat frame here, which reminds me of the Redmi Note 11. It's flat and it helps with the grip of the phone. In spite of the fact that the diagonal is so large, 6.6 inches, the phone is, I would say, quite wieldy. 200 grams and 8.9 millimeters in thickness. It's wieldy because in spite of being so long, it has the advantage of being quite narrow. As you can see for yourselves here, my finger can reach most areas of the screen except the top part. I would say it's pretty well built, even though it's made of plastic, and sadly doesn't have any sort of IP certification that I know of. It may feel a bit massive at first if you look at the frame, but in general I had no problem with it. It's available in black, blue or silver. Now, as far as the screen goes, this panel here is an IPS LCD 6.6 inch with a 2460 over 1080 pixel resolution, 144Hz refresh rate, and at the same time it also has Gorilla Glass 5 protection. You should probably also know that it supports HDR10 and Dolby Vision, which is no small feat for a mid-range phone. Now, I'm playing a video right now and some of my experience are as follows. Obviously, not an AMOLED, so the colors aren't as vivid and the palette is not as large. The screen is quite bright, even though the contrast cannot face a very sunny day. And the view angles are, well, good, but maybe not on par with what we've seen on the recent OLED devices. I have to say that the colors also feel a bit cold, that was my impression. And around the edges, or on the sides, the colors feel a bit white or a bit washed out if you want. There's also RGB stripes pixel arrangement. Now, we measure the brightness of the phone with a lux meter and achieved, let's see, 409 lux units. Usually everything above 400 is good, but it's quite dangerously close to the threshold, so I expected a bit better. It's still superior to the POCO X3 NFC and also superior to the Galaxy S20 Ultra. However, it's below quite a few other mid-range phones like the OnePlus Nord 2T, Realme GT Neo 3 150 watts and Galaxy A53. Honestly, I expected a bit higher, especially since some of those POCO mid-rangers went high with the brightness recently. Now moving further, we're talking about the CPU choice here, and as I mentioned before, it's quite famous, MediaTek Dimensity 8100. It's a 5nm octa-core chip. It's also present on the Oppo Reno 8 Pro in a Max version, on the Xiaomi 12T in, once again, the MediaTek Dimensity 8100 Max version, and Honor 70 Pro, once again, in the Max version. We have here the version with 8 gigs of RAM, luckily LPDDR5, this pretty much tells you that performance is secured for gaming and more, and the storage is 128 gigabytes. There's also a version with double that amount. UFS 3.1 of course, no microSD, just in case you're wondering. Now, POCO has doubled down on the cooling, so this device is kept quite cool when you're gaming in Diablo Immortal, Genshin Impact and other games, so it handles games like a champ and it will easily stay stable, keep the frame rate high and not get overheated. Now, as far as benchmarks are concerned, we have them here, and I'm going to start off with Antutu 9. As you can see, quite a solid placement above the Galaxy S21 Fan Edition and the Pixel 7 Pro. Not bad, to be honest. Also above the Xiaomi 12X. At the same time, it's below the Realme GT Neo 3 150 watts and below the Moto G200. Next up, we got the Geekbench 5 here, multi-core subtest. We're just above the Nubia Red Magic 6 Pro, which is a gaming flagship, keep that in mind. And we're also above the Vivo X80 Pro, a fall flagship of 2022, so we're doing quite fine. Below Realme GT and below the below the Realme GT Neo 3 150 watts and below the Xiaomi Mi 11. The most relevant of them all for gaming is the 3D Mark Slingshot ES Extreme 3.1, where we're above the OnePlus 9 Pro and Motorola Edge 30 Pro 5G. I would say we're not doing bad, but at the same time, let's see some other phones that surpassed us. I see the Realme GT2 Pro, Xiaomi 12 Pro and POCO X4 GT, all of them Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 based, so I would say we're in solid company and select company here. All of those come without any sort of overheating, so in benchmarks, we actually went a bit higher with the temperature, 41 degrees Celsius, and in games we stayed at 36.6, so I don't see any problem here with heating. Now let's talk about the battery, which is a 5080 mAh, which is atypical. We usually get to see 5000 on the dot, 4800 or 4500. Okay, so we have a few battery tests here. The first one is the continuous video playback in a loop, but first of all I should also mention that the battery charges at 67 watts via wired and promises to reach 100% in 46 minutes. In the video playback test, we achieved 14 hours and 32 minutes. I mean, it's just okay. I've seen recently a lot of phones going past the 18-hour mark. However, it beats the POCO X4 GT and the Pixel 7 Pro as well as the Motorola Edge 30. At the same time, this handset remains below the Nokia X20 5G and also below a few other phones like the Galaxy S21 Fan Edition and the Huawei Nova 10 Pro. There is a bit more of an impressive result in the continuous usage, 12 hours and 39 minutes, which is superior to the Xiaomi 12X, Pixel 7 Pro from Google and Motorola Edge 30 Pro. However, it's below the Honor 70, Realme GT Neo 3 150 watts and Galaxy A53. The charge is actually not bad, requires 51 minutes, not the 46 promised on paper, anyway, still pretty decent, and after 30 minutes you're at 68%. You should be all set for, I would say, enough hours to get about your day without problems. Now, as far as the acoustics are concerned, I'm shocked to see an audio jack here at the top and this speaker here, which complements the one at the bottom. We don't have the earpiece as a speaker here. And as usual, in this case POCO, provides us with, well, options to tune the experience, sound effects, Dolby Atmos and all that, hi-fi audio, a bunch of presets for video, music or voice, and a graphic equalizer with genres and 10 channels to play with. Now we also have a music tune prepared, and prepare yourself, it's quite loud. Okay, so the bass is pretty punchy, the volume is quite loud. I particularly love the high notes, even though, while this sounds pretty clear and crisp, when you're listening to heavy metal guitars, they sound very muddy at maximum volume, so beware. You should keep things at about 80% because, frankly, you don't need that much volume. There's a lot of volume here. I'm actually quite happy with those speakers, but you can definitely tell that the bottom one is much more powerful than the top one. Now, if you go here towards the other tests, so we achieved with an acoustic sample test 86.9 decibels at the top and 84.5 decibels at the bottom, which is weird because I actually felt that the bottom speaker was more potent. Anyway, with this result we surpassed heavy hitters like the OnePlus 10 Pro and the Samsung Galaxy A53. We are actually the perfect equal of the Xiaomi 12T Pro and we're below the POCO X4 and Motorola Edge 30. Check this out. In games, this is one of the most powerful handsets out there. So when it comes to games, 104.5 decibels, 13th spot from the 500 phones we've tested, quite impressive. It's top notch for sure, goes above Galaxy A53, Motorola Edge 30, Realme 9 Pro Plus. We're just comparing phones with a similar price range. It's below some handsets like the ZTE Axon 20 and the Oppo Reno 4 Lite, but still pretty impressive in its own way. Now, as far as the cameras are concerned, we can definitely talk about them. Now, the punch hole here you see at the top side of the screen hosts a 16 megapixel shooter which can only take Full HD capture and has f2.5 aperture. My money is on fixed focus. At the backside there's a triple camera setup with a 64 megapixel main shooter, f1.9 aperture and phase detection autofocus. There's also an ultra wide camera with 8 megapixel and 120 degree capture and a small 2 megapixel macro camera, dual tone, dual LED flash and also 4K 30 frames per second capture. The options from the camera are typical to Xiaomi and POCO and Redmi and all the other brands. They include AI, HDR, portrait, long exposure, night, documents, what have you. Also vlog, and you can use a pro mode for both photos and videos, as you can see here for yourself, with options like exposure, ISO, shutter, focus, white balance. You can alternate between them and also alternate between the lenses. And the video section once again lets you shoot 4K 30 frames per second. Okay, now let's go to the gallery and see the shots we've taken. Okay, so here we are with the daytime gallery of shots taken with the phone. Full disclosure, they were taken in July this year, and I have to say that the details are pretty soft on the sides, particularly if you look at the ultra wide shots and these trees here. Details are definitely soft, but it's to be expected from a camera with a lower resolution, as it usually happens. One thing I noticed is that the yellow hues are very nicely represented here and in a few other spots, like this bike here and a bunch of flowers and taxis, which I ran into here. So if you're going for things with the color yellow, you'll definitely be impressed by that hue. Now, the colors of the flowers are also satisfying, and luckily enough, we did not experience oversaturation or overexposure on this day. Pretty solid focus in close-ups, but the macros were a bit of a letdown when it comes to the details with, well, a small resolution camera. Now, as you can see here, there's plenty of detail to see in the main camera photos, if you look at these shots, and the colors are once again spot on. Now, I'll be honest, the selfies are a bit of a disappointment. There's too much beautification going on here. Even though I deactivated it, I expected a bit more from it. Well, at least the bokeh is well applied. This is too babyface for me, so I'm going to skip ahead and go here. If you're taking the shots in the shade, without the sun and without the beautification, things are a bit better, but the image isn't as sharp as I've seen even on some high mid-range phones. Once again, I expected a bit better from this. My only good thing is the texture of the hair. That would be pretty much it, and how expressive these eyes are, and probably the bokeh. But all in all, the selfie camera, well, I expected a bit better from it. Back to the main cam, we have some more flowers here, and once again a solid ability to focus. This is a main camera shot. This is an ultra wide camera shot. As you can see, it doesn't mess up the colors too much, and only the details on the sides. Several more colorful shots of Bucharest, and this time there's a difference. Main camera shot, ultra wide shot, you can see it's a bit darker than the one before it. A statue here, pretty well cut from the background, courtesy of a bokeh shot, and some architectural captures here of churches and other monuments in the capital of Romania. I would say they're pretty satisfying for a tourist, so if you plan on traveling a lot, you'll definitely be happy with what the main camera achieves. I like the way the shadows and light are compensated here and the level of detail. I'm actually quite happy with this shot, especially since the sun was going down a bit. Okay, so I would say that's pretty much it as far as the daytime capture is concerned. It's good for architectural shots, good for close-ups, good for tourism. The ultra-wide camera is a bit of a bummer, also the macro one, and I'm not very impressed by the selfies except for the bokeh and some aspects of the hair. Check it out, there's a pigeon making the seat of a bike or motorbike dirty. And once again, a lovely yellow. Okay, so I would say we're about 10% below what a Xiaomi 11T could offer, and pretty much on par with the Realme 9 Pro Plus. That's the level we're at. Okay, so now let's talk about nighttime shots. We have actually two galleries of nighttime shots. This is the first one where the camera cannot exactly handle the combination of water jets and lighting, particularly on ultra wide, so stick with the main camera. And even so, some of the light sources were definitely too amplified for their own good. Like you can see this one here flaring up way too much, this one as well. Now other nighttime shots are here. It's a decently competent camera at night, but it definitely doesn't break any records. The street light sources are kind of big, even with the main camera, but if you want to keep things kept in check, you definitely should use the night mode, which pretty much should solve all of your problems. You can see here the extra large halos appearing around the street lights. Honestly, I've seen worse, but I've also seen better, so there you have it. There's a bit of a ghosting here and extra flare. And let's see what else. If you're going once again for architectural shots, you'll definitely be impressed by what this camera has to achieve. So all in all, it's the behavior typical for a high mid-range device or a mid-range device, except for the ultra-wide, and definitely by using the night mode to, I would say, highlight the accents of the buildings better. This is a way too bright shot, but the night mode may normalize it, make it look more normal, not exaggeratedly bright. So all in all, feels like a generic behavior for a mid-range phone, a quality one at that. When it comes to videos, I have an app for that. It's called Mi Video, and let's see what videos we captured here. Sadly, it also has ads, as it usually happens for, well, Xiaomi and POCO and Redmi devices. Okay, so we have a lot of videos. Let's see what we're dealing with here. This one is pretty relevant on account of the fact that you can see me alterating the focus between the foreground and the background in a pretty snappy and fast manner. Another relevant one will definitely be the stabilization test. I actually have two of them. This is number one. I wasn't happy with it on account of the fact I haven't activated the steady mode yet. Well, excuse me, actually this is the other one. Now let's see, this is the one without the steady mode. You can probably tell by the way my steps are being felt while filming. Lots of people in the street, that's why I was keeping the camera so low. Of course, no stabilization here, there's a lot of jankiness in the image, but the other one is a definite improvement. It's a totally different experience with the steady mode. However, you're limited to Full HD. The other one was 4K. And by the way, not a badly detailed Full HD, to be honest. Okay, so this is a pretty good scenery. Sadly, when you're filming in 4K, there will be a lot of shakiness, and generally, when panning, things will be pretty shaky. But I'm happy to report that the details are spot on, and the colors aren't half bad, or at least the sky is a bit messed up, maybe too white and unrealistic blue, but in general I was happy with the results we achieved detail-wise and clarity-wise in 4K. We have more clips here, even a clip of a woman singing a song from Edith Piaf. Not sure if it's covered by copyright strike, so who knows, maybe she sings so well that we get a strike from Edith Piaf's, well, relatives. Okay, so that's pretty much it as far as the video capture is concerned. Pretty close to what the Xiaomi 11T is offering, a notch above Realme 9 Pro Plus, and these are the nighttime capture. This one is first. Obviously, the limitations of the mid-range are felt here. The lights are overblown. There's a bit of noise here and there. Sufficient details, I would say, but also shakiness as you pan and move around. Now, this one here is actually not bad, a bit darker than usual. The street light halos are also slightly big, but I have to admit I've seen worse. For a mid-range, it's pretty decent and clear. That's the most important aspect, even though the focus was a bit hit and miss this time around. By the way, the microphone was fine when filming that woman singing, but it was not fine when walking around on a stronger wind. That's about it camera-wise. Let's talk about other things like connectivity. Okay, so as far as connectivity is concerned, let's see what this phone has to offer. Obviously, it's got a dual nano SIM setup, it's got 4G and 5G connectivity, there's Wi-Fi 6 and even Bluetooth 5.3, which is something that MediaTek was ahead of Qualcomm with it. NFC for payments, USB-C 2.0 at the bottom, infrared emitter here at the top side to control your TV set, set-top box and more, and the calls were pretty loud and clear, at least for me. Now, we have a speed test app here. Let's see the results we achieved on both 5G and Wi-Fi. Pretty impressive, I would say. On 5G, 660 megapsecond downloads and 76.4 megapsecond in upload. Wi-Fi 6, 681 over 821 in download and upload respectively. Now, when it comes to the software, it's basically MIUI 13 on top of Android 12. with a small touch of POCO launcher. You can see here the news feed on the leftmost home screen. We got here the recents area with the usual two-column approach, and as usual for MIUI you have the separation of the quick settings from the notifications. Of course you can unify them if you want to, like in the good old days. If you pinch the screen, you're treated to the widgets, not the cool ones from Android 13 just yet, or the stacked ones which will come with MIUI 14. And as you can see here, the app drawer is divided into segments, or I would say types of apps: news, shopping, lifestyle, games, tools, and so forth. Okay, what else there's to mention? Security is the main hub of the device, is well functioning. It's got security scanner, a battery feature, Facebook cleaner, data usage, game turbo for the gamers. This is actually game turbo, and it's got quite a few settings and even a side window which you can trigger for some extra options related to games, their performance. You can improve the gaming experience. You can mess with the performance here. These are the performance modes. Performance optimization for avoiding overheating, memory exceptions, do not disturb, and prevention of accidental touches. If you go to the settings, there will be some usual MIUI stuff: connectivity options, lock screen, display, home screen, wallpaper, and themes. Of course, there's customization here down to the ringtone. Some are pretty cool, some are for cache. Privacy protection is here with permissions and a privacy policy. This is the additional settings: full screen display, gesture shortcuts, quick ball, one-handed mode. You can also trigger a sidebar for pop-up window multitasking. There's also digital well-being and parental control for the little ones, and special features like the front camera assistant, floating windows, and second space, which you can use to store documents from your work, those extra private ones. Okay, well, that's about it. I should probably also mention that we have a note-taking application, which is a good occasion for you to see the virtual keyboard you have on the device. And not sure I forgot anything, but if I did forget it, there's always the text review. Okay, I forgot the security. Of course, the fingerprint scanner is embedded in the power button. This is the wrong finger for it, this is the right finger for it. And as you can see, as I'm using it, it's actually looking for my face with this green icon here to do a face unlock. And that's the whole privacy thing of the phone. We're about done. It's time for the verdict, the pros and cons of this high mid-range gaming phone. On the pro side, it's comfy on account of the flat frame. It's also got an audio jack, which is a rare feature nowadays. It's got a 144 Hz screen, which is something that I would say even Motorola is giving up on. Usually there was only Motorola offering that, but now I see that Xiaomi and POCO and its brethren are doing the same thing. It's got a very powerful CPU and at the same time solid cooling in gaming, even long gaming. We have LPDDR5 RAM, UFS 3.1 storage. I would say that the continuous usage delivered in PC Mark was fine in my book. Charging is quite fast, and I have to say that you can take some good close-ups with the main camera, as you saw before. Some solid 4K videos as far as the details are concerned. Pretty nifty stabilization with the steady mode on, and nice colors all around, and I would say pretty good bokehs. Night mode is well applied, and connectivity is fast, plus the zoom is quite smooth in the 4K videos. On the con side, it's an elongated format device made of plastic. It doesn't have IP certification, doesn't have micro SD. The brightness of the screen, honestly I expected better, especially the contrast on a very sunny day may become a problem. And I would also say that the video playback time of the battery, I wanted it to be a bit better. The selfies didn't impress me, so the selfie camera is a bit of a bummer compared to the main camera. We have shaky panning in videos, a pretty poor ultra-wide and macro camera compared to the main one. There's no always on display, which is to be expected from an IPS panel. And also the street lights are a bit intense when it comes to video capture and photo capture. Plus we have ads in the interface, which bothers me. I noticed the ads particularly when messing about the customization. This is one example of ads. And especially when you're messing with the fonts, the ads are pretty well snuck in as you're looking here through all of the fonts, or at least they appeared last time I checked. Anyway, you just saw the ad before and it appears in several sections of the pre-installed applications, including the video player. There's one ad here, for example, and if you try to play a video with the Mi Video app, you'll be treated to a few ads. All in all, it's a gaming phone for sure. It's a high mid-range gaming phone with a potent CPU, nice cooling, and a solid camera for traveling. I would say that it can also handle some music on account of the solid stereo speaker it has on it, some of the best stereo speakers in the mid-range department. The CPU beats a Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 in some benchmarks, so gamers should definitely consider this for around $300. And the main camera performs decently if you don't fancy yourself a talented photographer above average. That's about it. Expecting it to get MIUI 14 pretty fast, hopefully, and a solid all-around mid-ranger, good for gaming and maybe some photos with the main camera if you're a tourist. That's it from us. Goodbye.